We're joined in the studios this morning with Greene County Sheriff Wesley Holt, who is going to be out of a job here in a couple of months. Sheriff, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Ron.
I wanted to ask you in today to just talk about what you've done in the career that you've had. There's not a lot of people that serve in law enforcement nowadays for as long as you have. There's certainly not as many people that would stay on the job 37 years, is
37 years, yes.
Tell me, let's go back to 1989 you started. Is that right?
1989, I started in the jail under Prycor. A lot of people don't remember Prycor, but that was a private company that came in and ran the jail at that time. The county contracted to do it, and I don't think they were doing a good job. I started in March of that year, and in September of '89 is when the county took the jail back over.
What made you say, I want to get into law enforcement?
Well, after high school, I decided kind of on a law enforcement career. I went to Walter State and got my associate's degree in 2 years. So after I got it and I was working, I was going on to ETSU and had a gentleman call me and say, we got openings at the jail. Will you come get your feet wet because you need that experience? And I thought, well, I'll give it a try, and I did, and that's where I've been the rest of my life.
Did you expect that? I mean, would you have said in '89, I think I'll spend 4 decades doing this job?
No, not at that time. I wouldn't have.
Was there anybody in law enforcement that you knew or looked up to, or Steve Spano said Alton Bradley was instrumental in getting him to be an officer, and of course he retired as chief this year. Was there somebody you looked up to in law enforcement? Well,
Terry Self came out to the high school and spoke with us, and that kind of got me going toward a career because I knew I had to do something when I got out of high school. And Terry Self, he's dead and gone now, was Tennessee Highway Patrolman, and he said it's a good career to get into. It's something I think you'll like.
So during your time, how many sheriffs have you served under?
I've served under Buck Townsend at that time, and then it went to Terry Jones, and then to Steve Burns, and then to Pat Hankins, and then I ran for sheriff. So.
What were your takeaways? And I'm not asking you specifically on somebody unless you want to say, but so being under all those administrations, how did that help shape how you wanted to be sheriff?
You look at what they do, and hopefully David Beverly's look at what I did and can improve on that. But I looked at what they did, how they ran the department, and I think, well, maybe you could do that a little bit better, And you always want to leave somewhere you work at in a better place when you leave. And I think hopefully I've left the Greene County Sheriff's Department in a better place.
What would be something you would want to be remembered? Two different ways of asking this: by the employees that you've overseen or that you've worked alongside over your career. When they talk about Wesley Holt, what do you want them to say?
Well, they know I like to cut up with them. That's one thing. I try to cut up with employees and have a little fun with them. But to know them and know their families, and hopefully they'll look back and say he was a good sheriff.
You had to be. You can't always cut up. Sometimes there's moments you have to be stern. You have to be a leader. You have to make tough decisions. How did you approach those cases?
Well, you look at yourself. If you've got an officer in trouble, you look at yourself. What if I was in his shoes? How would I deal with it? And I've tried to deal with it as fairly as I could. When we've had disciplinary issues, I've had to let some people go from their career in law enforcement because they just wasn't working out for them. They had problems. And you try to be fair about it. I always pray about it. The good Lord's helped me through this career, and I thank Him for that. But I always prayed about it, what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, and try to do it morally and ethically right.
You're also a representative of the people, so I know you always would take a sense of, I have to make the right decision for the people that you're sworn to protect.
That is true. I've always tried to manage the budget. They look at me and say, the sheriff's cheap, but they've got the equipment they need. Yeah, there's wants, but there's needs, and they got the needs met with me there. I always try to give them the equipment they need, but you got to look at the taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer too, just like you are, Ron, and you've got to look at that. The money comes out of our pockets too, so I always try to be fair and balance the county budget as best I could.
Started at the jail. You made your way to sheriff. Did you do pretty much every job in between? Have you been patrol? Have you been detective?
No, I never went to the detective side of it. I started out in the jail, and I was a training officer in the jail. After I'd been there a while, I was appointed a training officer position, then a sergeant in the jail, and then Buck approached me, Townsend did, and he said, would you be interested in going on the road? And I said, well, if you think that's where I need to go. And he said, that's where I think you need to go. And I was placed on a road patrol position and started out the bottom and worked my way up sergeant and lieutenant. And then when Pat Hankins was sheriff, he promoted me to captain over the field officers and patrol officers. So, and I worked my way up from there.
What's it like to be a patrolman? And I know it's a lot different now than it was 30 years ago when you were doing that. But when I envision a patrolman, I'm imagining how much courage it would take to get out of a car in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and approach another car in the dark who's already violated one law, and I don't know what else is going on inside of that.
Times have changed. Back then, people had respect for law enforcement. We could get a drunk and have to fight him back then, and come Monday, you took him to court, and he's shaking your hand and apologizing to you. I don't think that happens much anymore. But people had respect for law enforcement. I think after Ferguson, Missouri, and the Obama administration, law enforcement took a bad rap, and it keeps going downhill. Really, it's hard to find people to come to work and work in that job anymore.
You look back over. I was just making some notes of different dates. What events stand out in your mind as over your career? What's one or two things that have defined your career? Not maybe as the leader, not as the sheriff or as the jail, but something that's just that you think about a lot.
I guess events that I have seen over the years. Being a young patrol officer, I got that call about 10 o'clock at night to go out to Baileyton and stand by on the Lily Lid murder. And I remember that, and having to transport them and bring them back and forth from the juvenile detention center. That one really stood out in my mind. It really hurt my feelings for the families there that were involved. I still remember that. Dealing with child deaths and stuff like that, I can go back and look at those and still remember a lot of those. I guess the biggest thing that's happened was we had the tornadoes that went through Camp Creek. I spent a lot of hours out there in the command post on that one, on the ground out there, and then Hurricane Helene. Those are probably the three biggest things that I can remember that really stand out in my mind that happened here in Greene County.
Blizzard of 93.
Blizzard of 93. I forgot about that. Yeah,
That's going way back.
Yeah, we spent 30-some hours in the jail. We actually slept in the jail that night when Blizzard of 93 came through. Yes.
The floods of 2001.
Yes,
Horse Creek.
Viking Mountain.
Viking Mountain, all that got washed out.
Yes.
What about Rick Coyle, 1995?
Rick Coyle was my sergeant. I was on his shift, and I wasn't at home. I was actually out Baileyton dating Michelle at that time, and we'd went out on a date, and I'd went out to her house, and Mom had called out there. We got the call Mom and Dad had got the call at the house looking for me, because I lived down the south side, and that's where the incident happened at, and. Mom said, something's going on. The office is trying to get a hold of you. And when I called in the office, then Lori Rader was dispatching. And she let me know what had happened. And I went on into the office then and relieved her because she was all tore up, as imagine anybody would be.
That's still a hard thing to think about,
It is. It really is. Rick was a great guy. I mean, you couldn't find a better person than Rick Coyle. He always had a good sense of humor. And he said, Wesley, in this job, you'll do something, people will congratulate you for it, but the next minute you'll do something, and it'll be the wrong thing you did. And I can still remember that. But he said it with a few other choice words.
I bet he did. I remember there was a car that got hit by a Norfolk Southern train, and he called in, wanted to know if he needed to get the VIN number off of every car on that train also. With that memory in mind, is that something that you think about with your current deputies or with your fellow deputies about their safety?
Always worried about that since 2018. I worried about it when I was a patrol captain and lieutenant, but I worried more about now when you take over as sheriff. You hope you don't have to make that call. I think good Lord's blessed me, and I hope I don't till September 1st have to make that call. Hope we don't have any more officer deaths here in Greene County.
I would echo that as well.
But I always worry about that. When you lay your head down on the pillow of a night and then that phone rings at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't know what's on the other end of that line that they're going to tell you.
How do you? I'm sure you can't always leave it at the office. You have to carry some of that home. How do you cope with that personally?
I think the way I cope with it, having Michelle, my wife, in law enforcement too, I think that's helped me because we can vent off each other on different things. And then the guys kind of laugh at me over at the office. I'll take off and I'll say, I'm going to the farm to relieve some stress. And they're like, really? I say, that's work. I said, no, that's my stress relief. I can go down to the farm and get on a tractor or go out and do something, and it just takes all the stress away.
Is this Michelle you're referring to? I don't know that I've met her. Michelle, that's your wife?
Yeah, that's my wife.
Yeah, now she works there too. You've worked alongside of, you and Michelle met.
Right, we met
at
there.
Work, yes?
Yes.
And how long did you date before you got married?
We dated about 6 years before we got married.
Did you know before that she was the one, or you just waited that long?
Well, I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think you picked pretty good. I think you should have made your mind up a little sooner on that.
Well, the guys there at the office kid me, say, no, you're not the sheriff. Michelle's the sheriff.
I've told you, and I know other people have too. You're probably lucky she never ran against you.
Well, that's true. She'd probably got it.
So how good is it, or how helpful was it to have kind of that soundboard, somebody that knows that side of it, and that you can share part of the burden of the job? It
means a lot if you've got, and we've got several right now that have a husband and wife working in law enforcement together. It's just better for you because you all can talk about the problems and discuss it and feed off each other. And, if I'm having a bad day and she may offer me some advice, or if she's having a bad day, I offer her advice. And it's good. A lot of the young officers probably go home and their wives don't really understand. Until you've been in law enforcement, you don't really understand what goes on out here. And till they go home, maybe vent to the wives, and they're like, I don't want to hear it, So it's good to have somebody to vent off of.
You got a couple of children, too, that kind of took up that public service mantle as well.
Well, I do. Gabby, she kind of went to work for the U.S. Forest Service, so she covers everything from Round Mountain in Del Rio in Cock County all the way up to Mountain Range to Rock Creek in Irwin and Chesto and all that up in Irwin.
But she's very involved in community volunteering and helping her fellow man too.
She is. She joined the St. James Volunteer Fire Department just like I did, and she's got her Firefighter 1 certification, and she also serves on the Greenville Emergency and Rescue Squad. So she's kind of followed behind me now. Victoria's in public safety. She's a dispatcher for the city of Kingsport at their 911 center, but they've all kind of followed in a public safety career, I guess, in a way.
And she's made you a papaw, granddad. What are you?
Victoria's made me a papaw.
You're a papaw.
Yeah, Michelle's the granny.
The granny and papaw. All right. So, at the end of your career, you could have gone to the House, but you decided, I want to run for office again, and you chose to run for county commissioner. You're going to be on the other side of the budget now, a little bit on the other side of the decision making. How do you take your experiences as sheriff and dealing with that department and apply that to now looking at all departments that have to be funded through the county, through the property tax, through the taxpayers?
Well, I've always been civic-minded and want to give back to the community, and I think this is one way I can give back. Having to balance the budgets of the jail, the workhouse, the SROs, the drug fund, all those litter. Keeping the budgets low is one good thing. Taxpayers appreciate you for doing that. And I hope to be able to give my expertise of what I've seen, worked with the Budget and Finance Committee, so I know what goes on there. I've served on the Insurance Committee, so where we can make Greene County a better place to live. We've got a lot of people moving here, so we want it to be a better place to live.
I asked this when you were doing, running in the primary, and you still have the general, but I believe you're unopposed.
Right.
Your district is settled. How's the jail? I mean, the jail's old, and there's always talk about capacity, and I know there's been struggles with every sheriff not struggles may not be the right word, but it's always a concern to keep that certified. That's a big deal, isn't it? Remaining certified.
It is, and I've been blessed the last 8 years being your sheriff that I have been able to keep that certified. It's how you manage the jail. You've got to manage the population with the court system and all. But yes, the building is getting older, and that's what I want us to look at in Greene County as a commissioner. I want us to have a little forethought and planning to look to the future. Okay, this building's getting old, just like the courthouse. We're spending a lot of money on the courthouse right now for bathrooms. If we had planned out and said, okay, we're going to have this problem 5 years, 10 years down the line, we could start putting money back and be ready for that when we need to come and have those repairs or have to make those repairs or have to look at a new building. Yes, eventually, I'm not saying 10 years down the line, but eventually that jail down there will fall into, if we don't keep it maintained, we'll fall into a state of disrepair, and we will have to build another jail. And also, as your population goes up later on, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, you're going to have to think about that. But you got to think about a lot about the citizens that are people are moving here and becoming citizens of Greene County. That increases your use of schools. It increases more kids in schools. It increases more demand for garbage service, your fire protection. We all know how the volunteer fire departments are now. They're suffering from getting volunteers to come in, even volunteers. So you've got to look at all this. We need to be planning for the future of Greene County, not just what's happening now and putting a Band-Aid on it and hope it will last 5 years.
Going back to law enforcement, and as we wrap up, what advice would you give to either somebody thinking about their career or a young deputy that's just gotten on in the job, the people that you've hired for the first time for their first job? They come in, they go through the jail, or if they're going out on road patrol, what advice does Wesley Holt give to those people coming in?
Always be true to the badge. Don't tarnish the badge. Be faithful and honest. Be someone that the public can approach and talk to you about their problems. I mean, that's what I've enjoyed as being a patrol officer, and still like to go out and talk to people. Like to talk to people and listen to their problems. Maybe you can solve it, maybe you can't. But they want somebody that's going to listen to those problems. And be respectful to the public. Treat everybody like you'd want to be treated, and that's what I tell all the new officers. Think about it. You do something out here that's wrong, think about it. Would you want to be treated that way? Treat them like you'd want to be treated and be fair and honest with them.
Is that good advice for not just the next sheriff, but the sheriff after David Beverly and the sheriff after that? Is that the same advice you give to...
You need to treat the public. I've always had an open door policy. If someone called, I didn't ignore their phone call. I'd take that call, or if I wasn't in, they'd leave a message. I'd call them back. You have to be accountable to the public. They're our taxpayers. They're the ones paying your salary, and they're the ones that put you in that office.
Greene County Sheriff Wesley Holt, your last day, you go out of office September. Well, you said you're going to work a little bit after that, wrapping things up, but your tenure as sheriff ends August 31st. Is that right? 31st,
yes.
Well, Wesley Holt, thank you as a friend for all you've done for the years for Greene County and your service is from when you started to where you got now. I appreciate, and I hope our listeners do too, everything you've done.
Thank you, Ron. Thank the citizens of Greene County for allowing me to serve.
Greene County Sheriff Wesley Holt joining us here, 99.5 FM WGRV.